Good morning and welcome to the Harry Jackson Show. I'm your host, Harry Jackson, and I'm excited about today. Today is Faith and Finance Day for us. In the second segment of our show, as is our habit, we'll be talking about the minimum wage once again. We're going to be talking with Terrence Jeffrey from CNS News, staunch conservative, someone who's worked with the presidential campaigns of some famous figures. We're going to ask him, does the minimum wage, as proposed by many conservatives, appear to be racist? And you can weigh in on this at Bishop Harry, hashtag the Harry Jackson Show. Bishop Harry, Harry Jackson Show. Again, does the minimum wage, as it is proposed or purported to be or proposed, no increase, none of the ideas of trying to help the poor, the least, the last, and the lost. By many in our culture, it seems to be a racist approach. And what do you think? I had somebody tell me that just yesterday, and it was one of the brothers from the hood, and that was his interpretation and his spin. Is he wrong? Was he wrong? Is he right? Or is there a place in which we can be so right that we become wrong? Or so wrong, we can become right. Well, Dave Parlett is smiling. He looks a little bit confused, but I'm not confused. Am I?
No, I know you're not. It just sounds that way.
You know I'm not confused, but you think I'm confused. I see. Good. I hope that I'm not having some kind of mental kind of aberrant behavior there, a blood clot on the brain or something. But reach out at Bishop Harry, hashtag Harry Jackson Show. The underlying thing that really isn't talked about is, how we deal with the poor often is interpreted in and through the lens of race. And given that idea, then we do have to ask the question, as we're going into a new set of elections, are we dealing with a topic that can make people seem more or less racist or not? And I think it's an adequate and appropriate question for us today. At Bishop Harry, hashtag the Harry Jackson Show. We'll respond to you on the air. Come on, Florida, help me out. Come on, Maryland, help me out. Come on, Arkansas, I need some tweets, right? Yeah, I need some tweets. It's tweet, it's not twit. Oh, that's what they call me, a twit, not a okay, all right. No, okay, so folks, we're still trying to have fun, even though it's Tuesday and it's cold in Maryland. 5 stories we want to introduce in this segment, and they're very interesting. Michigan Congressman calls it a career, Republican, or representative rather. Let me get my parties right. I messed up some earlier last week. Representative John Dingell, the committee barons, says Hill service is obnoxious. And he feels like we have come a long way. We've gotten ourselves a little bit confused in terms of how we're dealing with things. He is, in fact, a Democrat. But he hates the partisan nature of the Hill now. 59 years in Congress, 26,000 with a T, 26,000 votes cast, and 81 years that the seat has been held by a Dingell. And so he's a frail man of 87 years old. We see him hand in hand in Southgate, Michigan, with his lovely wife, who, if she's over 50, I'm 75 myself. She might be in her early 50s. Take a look at this picture, gentlemen.
Yeah, she's a beautiful
watching
woman.
She's a beautiful woman.
And he's definitely an older, frail man.
He's an older, frail man. Yeah. This guy must have won the lottery or something. Or maybe he is taking here's another picture of them, taking some vitamin B supplement. Why? Jericho, Dr. Rudy in our midst says, look at this lady. She is awesome, Deborah. And it's interesting that she may run herself. Watch it now, to succeed her husband. Well, that'll be interesting to see what they do. Story number 2 is the governor's White House recap. And story number 3, Black History Month, is it still needed? Story number 4, the black phone, not to be confused with the bat phone. Or in our production meeting right before the show, I thought our producer was saying that the Barack phone was available. You know, there are many people who said that the president offered them a phone, and they were voting for the president because he was going to give them a phone. That's interesting.
Really?
And yes. And then if time permits, there's a 5th story that we're going to come to about Harold Ramis. Let's talk for a moment about the governor's White House recap, Dr. DePass. They were in agreement on what unlikely subject. We talked about this yesterday, kind of set it up. And that subject was, sir?
Got to cut in the National Guard. That weapon,
Very good.
The weapon that they have under their control historically.
So nobody wants to cut the National Guard. And do you think that's fair or appropriate, David Perlett?
Absolutely. We should not cut the National Guard. We need all the security, all the help we can, especially natural disasters and assistance.
But Bobby Jindal seemed to be someone who was waving a flag saying, Mr. President, we don't like that, but he went further and attacked the minimum wage. Dr. DePass, is this a mute argument? Is he just trying to get PR, if I can ask it just that succinctly?
I think some of both. I'd like to get back to the National Guard reductions. I think I was in the reserve for many years, which is somewhat analogous to the National Guard.
Right.
And Pastor Dave, we didn't do much. You know, we met once a week, but we just came there in our civilian clothing and just sort of fellowship with one another. And I don't think many of these units are really combat ready. In case if we need them, I don't think they're really ready to go on the front line. So I think, the nature of our National Guard has changed. Like the military, we don't need so much manpower; we need some brain power.
Oh, so you're saying they have no brains?
Well, not anymore.
Not anymore.
More introduction of technology.
Don't tweet me on that, folks. All right. No, we get your point. Well, let me ask you this: are they paid? They come and hang out.
Big time money. I mean, the good supplement to the income, like a second job. And you know, in the summertime, for a week, we would go away and have fun somewhere in some warm climate, and we run a few exercises. But I think they're good to back up. I can't deny that. But I mean, the traditional role that they play in terms of in wartime, I think, is somewhat diminished. Even though in terms of disaster, the federal disasters that we experience, in many cases, we do have the military that's ready to go into action.
Okay, we've got that. Dave Perlett, the governors were saying what? They believed that the emergency environment was why they should keep them in place. Am I right?
Absolutely. Anytime you got a crisis and you want to be ready, you want to be ready. So if you've got a crisis, you don't want somebody to say, we got a crisis, now we're going to think about being ready.
Okay.
But are they really ready? I mean, they're there. The physical bodies are there. Are they trained and ready to go into action? Like in terms of Katrina, it's really the Corps of Engineers who really went in there and did the work. The National Guard came, they did something, but the real technical stuff that had to be done to correct the problem, I think, was done by active duty personnel who were trained and regularly practice their trade.
Regularly practice. I think you had a good point. Coming back in the third segment, I think we should return to this question a little bit. We have very rare unanimity among Republicans and Democrats these days in politics. So all the governors are saying it is that they're just looking for a sweet, soft, easy job and some money in their state, or does it have substance? Third story is Black History Month, still needed. What say you, Dave? Paulette.
Now, for me, I was never raised in the Black History Month culture, and so for me, I enjoy hearing about Black history. It's a learning point of understanding what our American history's come through. So I enjoy that.
Yeah, it's a national thing, not a culture. No offense, I'm nitpicking on your words.
Mm-hmm.
So you weren't exposed to it. You enjoy it. You think it's okay. Dr. DePass.
Well, I think that the focus of it needs to sort of shift. My kids were born in the 1970s, and they don't really have much of an appreciation for the civil rights struggle. I didn't do a good job of teaching them what it was all about. And secondly, I was born in, raised in a county in Virginia that during that time.
Sorry to hear that.
The 1876 Plessy versus Ferguson. Ferguson rule was in order. Segregation was the law. And when I go back then to visit, I don't see much progress. So I think that we need to emphasize the relevant role of the civil rights movement, especially things like voting. Young people got to be encouraged to vote, and therefore they get their say in the system. I think that because I think that subtle racism is still there, and unless we keep this in the forefront of our young people, they'll lose what our ancestors went through to gain what we have today.
Well, I was with a African American pastor just yesterday, organization we lead and are part of, called the International Communion of Evangelical Churches, black and white mix. One guy said, I, always black, do not celebrate Black History Month in the church because I do not want the next generation hung up on those issues. And he feels there's enough information out in the culture. So let's come back at the third segment and talk about it and talk about how it could be improved or focused if we're going to celebrate it. It is a quasi-national emphasis and, quote, it's not a holiday, but it comes with MLK Day. If we're going to keep it, what should it be for? Only 3 minutes left. The new black phone for security. Somebody in PG County finally broke through the technology barrier and created a new security-oriented, security-effective phone. And it's needed in this time. Is this something you guys think is significant, or are we being paranoid, or do we need a black phone for Black History Month? Just thought I'd put that out there.
Ooh, it's nice to feel secure if you got guys like Snowden running around. And there's hackers everywhere. So it's awesome. We need some technology like this today, developed by this Navy SEAL.
All right, so I think we can come back and talk about that as well. And then in the absence of a lot of time today, I want to really just go back to our story about Obama's appeal to governors and the minimum wage, which, again, can come back in a moment. Our next guest is going to be talking about the minimum wage. And I've asked our folks to tweet us at Bishop Harry, hashtag Harry Jackson Show. Is the resistance against minimum wage a manifestation of racism? Is it racist? Anti-poverty? So I'm going to take a poll of us, and then we'll have a break, and then we're going to talk to Terrence Jeffrey from CNS News. Is it racist, Dave Paulette?
Wow, that's hard to call. I have other issues on it, but
yes or no?
Yes or no? I'll say no for now.
You'll say no, it's not racist. Rudy Pass, is it racist to keep the minimum wage where it is? Yes or no?
No.
It is not racist. And I'm going to say, not as a devil advocate, I think it does have racist overtones, even though it's not its intent. So unless Terrence Jeffrey can communicate a compelling reason why it's not racist, I'm going to tell him that he's going to be labeled racist by many people that are in our culture. And over 60% of the people who are in America agree that it should happen. So why is he talking about it? Why are we talking about it? As a conservative, I'm tired of people calling me racist for no reason. What about you? At Bishop Harry, hashtag The Harry Jackson Show, is keeping the minimum wage set at a level that it is today a manifestation of racism. Don't you dare touch that dial. We'll be right back with The Harry Jackson Show.
With today's Faith to Action commentary, here's Janet Porter.
A newly formed coalition for family values is standing with Russia. Massachusetts Attorney Scott Lively and Americans for Truth About Homosexuality's Peter LaBarbera have formed a coalition for family values to encourage allies abroad to lobby their own governments against the homosexual agenda. Their statement said, "The vast majority of the people of the world do not accept the notion that sexual deviance should be normalized." The coalition added, "By taking these steps in the face of intense criticism and hostility, the Russians have demonstrated the high value they place on their children and the natural family model of society. So even during the Winter Olympics, as they stand with family values, the Coalition for Family Values stands with Russia."
Visit f2a.org for more commentaries and action steps, along with news, links, and much more for your state. Go to f2a.org.
My name's Garrett, and a few years ago, I went through one of those life-shattering events as I watched my marriage crumble and I became a statistic of divorce. Now, there were some pretty dark days, as how could a Christian guy get divorced? I mean, I was the guy who told others how faithful God was, and then all of a sudden, my shortcomings were made public, and there I was, a statistic. Then a couple of great guys reminded me of what God's Word says about a bunch of men and women who goofed up, messed up, and even went through rough stuff like divorce. Isn't that just like God to say, "Hey, I love you anyway, even if you are divorced"? Well, today I still don't have it all together, but I do know that Jesus has changed me, restored me, and I'm becoming the dad and the new husband that He wants me to be. If you're there today and you don't think there's any hope, think again. Jesus is ready to spend some time with you on the road to restoration. You can meet Him right now. Just call 888-NEED-HIM or chat with us live at needhim.org.
It sounds cliche, but one of the things I love to do is watch the stars in the summer. I don't love the attack of the mosquito that often comes along with those balmy nights, but time after time, I go back for the view, smacking arms and legs as we fight off the persistent mosquito attack. That's the way it is in the spirit. The battles that we face in the spirit are never finished. When we brave the summer nights with family barbecues and bonfires, we arm ourselves with repellent, dryer sheets, or any manner of things that we think will ward off those pests. Why then are we not as eager to arm ourselves with spiritual armor? Prepare yourself for battle, soldier. The enemy seeks to steal, kill, and destroy. With a heart for the urban family, I'm today's urban woman, Tony Johnson. Connect with us at urbanfamilytalk.com.
Welcome back to the Harry Jackson Show. I am your host, Harry Jackson. This is Faith and Finance Day, and we're going to be talking in a moment about minimum wage. And our guest here is Terrence P. Jeffrey, started as editor-in-chief of CNSnews.com in September 2007. And prior to that, he served for more than a decade as editor of Human Events, where he is now editor-at-large. Terry was born in San Francisco, raised in the Bay Area, 7th of 11 children. He also earned a bachelor's degree in English literature, as did I. He came from Princeton in 1981, me from a place called Williams College in 1975. He also studied Arabic, which I studied French. That's a real big departure. And at the Arabic Language Institute of the American University in Cairo. My daughter was a faculty member for about a year and a half at that American University of Cairo, believe it or not. And many years later, I might add. And he's also got a Master of Arts in Arab Studies program at Georgetown University, here in the D.C. area, and he has been nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. And as I look at some of the things that he has done, he was a national campaign manager for Pat Buchanan in his second presidential campaign. So we have a staunch Republican conservative. Now, I would put myself as a staunch conservative. I don't claim absolute allegiance to the Republican Party. I claim allegiance to the issues that we face to the conservative movement. I am social and financial and even security-based, military-oriented, if you want to call it that, conservative. Now, with that being said, I'm tired of people calling conservatives racist, especially since I'm an African-American. And on several occasions, folks, I almost lost my black card hanging out, talking around this issue with many, many people in the public. So, Terrence Jeffrey, welcome to the Harry Jackson Show. And we're going to talk about minimum wage. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, Bishop Jackson. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, wonderful. I'm going to put you in the uncomfortable position of having to defend and protect me against the labeling of being called racist. And I want to put you on the hot seat. Yeah. No, because I was talking to someone yesterday, a little bit of an aside, but I think it's on a former military person, high-level person looking for a job in the Washington, D.C. area, expecting to get between $90,000 and $110,000, $120,000. African-American, says that the issue against minimum wage, and said that many of the problems, anti-Obama problems, policy problems, even like the governor's retreat, he says are a manifestation of racism, and he was serious. He's in fellowship with us, members of our church community. We are definitely not, as a group, racist or reverse racist as a group, but he seemed to be picking this thing up that is a progressive or pervasive, I should say, rather, sentiment among many minority people. So can you tell me, point blank, let's start with this, and we're going to put you where you are, is the minimum wage argument by conservatives fueled by or anchored in racism at all? Yes or no? And then give us your take on the issue.
No. I mean, it's not racist in any way. And I would say not only would it be immoral and evil if it were racist to be opposing an increase in the minimum wage for racist reasons, but I think if you did an objective analysis of what the impact of increasing the minimum wage was likely to be, and you saw that it would be harmful to the African-American community or any other community in the United States, you should change your... But, when you were saying that, Bishop Jackson, I went on the Bureau of Labor Statistics website, and I looked up some data that I hadn't looked up when I originally wrote my column last week, but it's relevant to this issue, which, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, African Americans who are 16 to 19 years old in the United States of America have a 39% unemployment rate. That's horrendous.
Wow.
And what 39%. And what that means is that black kids 16 to 19 years old, when they go into the labor force, when they're actively seeking a job, when they want a job, this is not a kid who's in school and isn't working, just going home and going to school and playing sports. This is a kid who wants a job. 39% of those black kids, 16 to 19 years old, that are trying to get a job are not finding one in the United States of America today. That's higher than it was in January 2009 when Obama came into office. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it was 36.5% then. So it's chronically high. It's too high. Now, what is that? Yeah. What is the relationship between that high unemployment rate for black kids 16 to 19 years old and the minimum wage? Well, there's a real one. When I looked into the minimum wage last week, looking at the statistics from the Bureau of Labor Statistics as this federal government agency, I found out something that I found was surprising when I first saw it, which is it's not just anybody in the United States who's earning the minimum wage. It's young people. 50% of the people who are earning the minimum wage in the United States right now are 24 years old or younger. 64% are 29 years old or younger. So, and we're talking about 3.3 million people making the minimum wage. So there's only 1.2 million people making the minimum wage who are 30 years or older, and that works out to 0.8% of the 143 million people who are working. So if you get out and go to work in the United States of America and you work till you're 30 years old, you have almost no chance of your employer paying you the minimum wage. You're going to get paid more than the government requires an employer to pay you. But then there's another fact about the minimum wage. It's not just young people, Mr. Jackson. It's people working in particular industries. And 63% of all people making the minimum wage are working either in a restaurant, a bar, or in a retail outlet. And half of them are working in restaurants and bars. And in restaurants and bars, you can get tips. And under the federal minimum wage law, the one that where President Obama wants to increase the minimum wage up to from $7.25 to $10.10, if you are one of those people who are working in a job where you get tips, the minimum wage law doesn't apply to you. So younger people working as waiters or servers or people working in a restaurant or so forth, which is often what they're doing, or the retail, they're not even going to get the minimum wage increase if it happens. Those working in retail will, but not those necessarily working in restaurants.
Okay, let me stop you right there, Dr. Paz.
Yeah, just
short question.
Of that 39% of the unemployed not finding a job. Now I have two relatives in my family. Both have college degrees, and they're not working because they can't find a job that will pay them a decent enough salary to support themselves and their two children.
Okay, let's stop there. How old are they?
They're probably 40, in the 40s.
Okay, let him answer. We're going to have a whole nother segment to come back with our point. What do you say about that? Those people who are anomaly, like the guy I talked to yesterday, who is kind of giving me the intellectual blues. He wants a lot more than the minimum wage. Somehow, though, he ties the concept philosophically together with racism, with insensitivity of policies. I know this is more nuanced. You've given us strict fact. What say you to Dr. DePaz's statement? Help me out.
Well, I think it's a very bad thing in America if you have people who are 40 years old, they're trying to get a job where they can make a decent living, enough money to support themselves and a family. That is an outrageous thing. And I think it is true that in the U.S. economy today, it's getting harder and harder for people to find a job. It's getting harder for people to find a job that they can raise a family on. I think it's almost become impossible for families to, like they did once upon a time in our country, raise kids on a single income so the mom can stay home and take care of the kids like moms used to do in the United States of America. So I agree. I think there's something seriously wrong in our economy. But I think if you raise the minimum wage, it's not going to solve that problem. But I think there's another thing that it's going to do besides deprive younger people of work. And as I pointed out from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there's an incredibly high, ridiculously high unemployment rate among black kids 16 and 19 years old. So it's going to be harder for them to find a job. But the other thing that it is, I think it's true that in American society, a lot of us, and I had this experience, is our first job is in a job for a small business, maybe a family-owned business in our neighborhood and community, where some guy who started his own business is paying us a minimum wage. That's the way it was for me. And in that job, I learned I had to get up in the morning, I had to listen to my boss, I had to work hard, and I learned the skills of being a worker. And that to me, that was the benefit of having a minimum wage job for a good part of my life. And I think that's the benefit that it has for a lot of people. It's their first entree into the labor force and learning what life is about in that area. And I think that I believe that Americans will be harmed in both those ways if we increase the minimum wage. Fewer younger people would have
Okay,
jobs.
let me
And they
stop
also,
you.
by not having that job, would not learn that experience that makes them a more valuable employee, and maybe even a small businessman themselves, because they're going to see, hey, look at
Okay,
this guy. This is how
we got
he,
you. We got you.
he invested in something and prospered by creating a business.
We got you, Terrence. Now, here's our issue then. And I agree, I'm coming from a conservative perspective, but I don't have answers for these folks. Average age minimum wage person now in America is, as you kind of alluded to, 28 years old. It's going up. 40% of people making minimum wage. The SEIU representative told us on public television have 40% have undergraduate degrees. They've got college degrees. So sounds like we have a structural problem, meaning I agree with you. I think you've been persuasive about these jobs should be for 16 to 19-year-olds. What do we do as a conservative thinker analysis? What will we do with increasing job opportunities for this increasingly older and educated group? Do you have any ideas about that, or do we just sound racist?
No. In fact, by the way, I been trying to pull it up, but if folks look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics employment by educational level, the unemployment rate for people who graduate from college is much, much lower than the overall unemployment rate. And if you look at, I did do a piece about this a few weeks ago, based on the income statistics published by the Census Bureau. The more education someone gets, the higher their income is going to be, according to the Census Bureau. Also, people who get married make more money than people who aren't married. People who are married and have children have the highest median income in the United States. So statistically, based on the data that the federal government puts out, if you want to be successful economically in the United States, graduate from college. If you can, go to graduate school, go to professional school. If you can, but graduate from college, get married, have kids, stay married, and raise your kids. Those people who follow that pattern in American life still today make a pretty good living. But not only do we have to maximize opportunity that people to on that path
Jeffrey,
to school, marriage, family. But I agree. We need an economy that's freer, where more entrepreneurs can go out and create more jobs and make more wealth for more people.
I have a question to pose. Look, from the conservative perspective, I can see how the president would be frustrated because he proposed many jobs bills. He proposed many bills to rebuild our infrastructure, and these haven't passed. Shouldn't the conservative focus on making jobs available, passing some of these bills that are being proposed to create jobs, to retrain people? Shouldn't that be a way to get around this problem of raising the minimum wage?
Well, if someone believed that the proposal would actually spur the economy and create jobs and cause someone to create jobs, then we have, for example, the example of Obamacare, where once you hire a 50th full-time employee, then you're required to buy health insurance. And when you buy that health insurance, you're talking sometimes about $17,000, $18,000 for a family plan. That gives an incentive for businesses not to grow. We've also seen where, because you get subsidy to buy the health insurance on the Obamacare exchange, if you make less than 400% of the poverty level, there's an incentive for people not to make more than 400% of the poverty level. You can get a $1 raise, and all of a sudden you have to pay $10,000 more for health insurance. Or if you're living out of wedlock with someone and you both have an income combined that's over the 400% of poverty, as long as you don't get married, you can still get the federal subsidy. So it's a disincentive for marriage. So I'm not persuaded that the proposals that President Obama has made and is making actually would create jobs. I think many of them would do the exact opposite. It would create a disincentive, which is what the CBO said. Not only does Obamacare create disincentive for jobs, they also said
you're listening to the Harry Jackson Show, the voice of Terrence Jeffrey. We're going to invite him back again. A lot of great information. We'll come back and continue this discussion from our perspective right after this break. Thank you, Terrence. And this is the Harry Jackson Show. Tweet us at Bishop Harry, hashtag The Harry Jackson Show. Is the minimum wage resistance racist? Want to know from you.
This is Life Issues with Brad Mattis, Executive Director of Life Issues Institute.
I was recently chatting with one of our Cincinnati area congressmen, Brad Wenstrup's a rock-solid pro-lifer and great guy. He's a physician who's a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserve. He did a tour in Iraq as a combat surgeon providing care for our soldiers. Brad married later in life to Monica, who volunteers at a local crisis pregnancy center. He's 55 years old and just weeks ago became a father for the first time. We're all about babies here at Life Issues, so when I shook his hand, I was quick to say, no disrespect, but I'm more interested in seeing a picture of your baby. His face lit up and he promptly produced a picture of him with Brad Jr. Congressman Wenstrup has pro-life in his blood and will serve the people well.
Life Issues. Stay informed. More informed than you've ever been.
When God wants to get our attention, He can do it in any one of a million creative ways. But Dr. Tony Evans offers this tip about what to be watching for as he brings us the alternative view.
You know when God is ready to expose something new of Himself to you when He puts you in a contradiction, between a rock and a hard place, up a creek without a paddle, out on a limb. He allows or creates a situation that confuses you, contradicts you, messes over you. You want to know why this, why now, why then, why? Well, Moses sees a bush burning. Moses looks over, I see a bush on fire and it's still green. He says, that makes no sense. That is a contradiction. The Lord said to Moses, 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 take off your shoes. This ground is my territory now. And then he unveils to Moses the purpose for Moses' life. What I'm trying to tell you is that the contradiction you in right now, the conflict you facing right now, don't just look at the bush that's burning. Look at the God who wants to talk to you through the burning bush.
Learn more about the meaning and power behind the many names of God found in the Bible. Contact us for details on Dr. Evans' new book, The Power of God's Names. We also have a DVD-based Leaders Kit, packed with everything you need to pass on these important concepts to your small group or Sunday school class. Get details at tonyevans.org today. You've been listening to The Alternative View.
Welcome back to the Harry Jackson Show. I'm your host, Harry Jackson. We've been asking the provocative question, is the way people resist the minimum wage increase in the nation, is it racist? Is it racist? Now, don't shout me down because I don't really believe that it should be considered such, but the people in the street, a large majority of people I'm talking to, are saying that the resistance to job creation, the way President Obama sees it, as well as this emphasis on increasing the minimum wage, is in fact racist. Give us your opinion at Bishop Harry, hashtag The Harry Jackson Show. Bishop Harry Jackson or Bishop Harry at hashtag Harry Jackson Show. This is not meant to be an incendiary question alone, although I hope it's going to agitate and itch and burn with some till we get an answer. But these are the things I'm hearing in the community, on the street, from the real people that in a few months are going to take real votes. And I loved my last guest, Terrence Jeffrey, for his information, but he didn't answer the question. And the question is, how are you going to have a poverty alleviation program on the right that will not appear to be racist? And even how can you communicate this thing in a way? He did a good start by emphasizing the unemployment levels of 16 to 19-year-olds. And among blacks, that number is getting up to a whopping 39%. I thought that was persuasive. But he had no response for the fact that 40% of minimum wage workers in the United States have a college degree, although, to his credit, 63% of these people may work in restaurants, bars, or retail, and at least restaurant and bar workers have an opportunity for tips. So there may be an upward angle to this. Our studies show that 900,000 people will be pulled out of poverty with an increase of the minimum wage, according to the Congressional Budget Office. But 500,000 jobs will be lost, and that's a catch 22. And you're in trouble if you don't, you're in trouble if you do. What say you about this, David Perlett? But first, we want to greet some people from somewhere in Arkansas before you tell us what you think about racism and the minimum wage.
Well, we're going to say good morning to Arkansas, and today we're broadcasting live at 90.1 in Pocahontas City.
Yeah.
Woo! Courtesy of American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk. We want to let you know Pocahontas is one of Arkansas's most historic cities, the Southwest Trail, and it became a major immigration route during the 1820s. Also, it is called a county of firsts, and Arkansas is the first Baptist church, the first school, held in a cave. Woo!
That's not good for the PR of Arkansas. We'll keep moving real fast.
The first post office began in the county. Also, it's the first Thanksgiving Day ever in Arkansas, celebrated there back in 1847.
Pocahontas City. If you're at Pocahontas, I want you to reach out, let us know you're alive. And Pastor Dave, I thought Pocahontas was already dead. I didn't know she was still kicking.
She's still got her name here on the rolls in this city in Arkansas.
So reach out to us if you're from Pocahontas or the environ at Bishop Harry, hashtag The Harry Jackson Show. And we'll give you a shout out as well. We are delighted that we're in so many communities that have radio stations. 90.1. All right, Pastor Dave, back to this issue of racism and the minimum wage. Is it racist the way that it's being portrayed, or is it just leaving many conservatives open to racist accusation unnecessarily?
I don't think it's racist the way it's being portrayed, but I agree with you. It is leaving the conservatives open to the portrayal of racism, and so I agree it has those racist tones. Racism is still an issue and a problem in America. We know a lot of friends who are going through the issue, but no, I don't think it is.
Dr. DePass, how do we solve this problem? Go ahead.
Okay, I always argue with Dr. Dave. I don't think it's racist, but contrary to misimpression, 66% of low-wage workers are employed by large corporations, not small businesses, which is usually the perception we have. It's also found that more than 70% of the biggest low-wage employers have recovered from the recession and are enjoying strong profits, yet wages remain stagnant.
Isn't that their right to enjoy strong profits?
Yeah, but their frontline workers have wages have remained stagnant. So I think it's difficult for entrepreneurs to empathize with those people who can't make it, have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make that ends meet. So I don't think it's racist. I think there's more just profit maximization concept of businesses. And secondly, I think that the private sector generally and the conservative would prefer no government intervention in anything. It'd be better if the free market economy resolved this issue, and that could come about, I think, by more jobs being available, which are not there. So,
Right.
Go ahead.
No, I would say you're right. Typically, that's the answer. But if you go on the extreme, the libertarians really are the ones that are going to say much more no controls. Most conservatives want little government versus big government, and they believe that you need to stoke the engine of enterprise in order to increase things. Their answer ultimately should be and it's not being articulated clearly enough, more small business in needy communities that will help all people plant businesses in minority communities. But it's not clear that there's incentives to do so. And it sounds like for some who are struggling, oh, you want to keep your foot on my neck. And when you say businesses have risen in profit, do you want to mandate that businesses give minimum wage or a percentage of their profit to their less advantaged employees? Yes or no, Rudy DePass?
Yes, indirectly, yes.
That maketh you not a conservative. Dave Perlett, what do you say? You want to mandate some increases or percentages or limits on the salary of presidents of major corporations?
No, I don't think you should limit that at all. I mean, give this free economy the right to choose. If they make money, then the hard work deserves more money.
Like a salesman on commission, if they make money, I guess the only question I have about that, just from internal governance of any company, if your CEO is presiding over something that doesn't make money, his bonus packages and compensation should be tied to the relative health of the institution. It's crazy if you're making 10, 15, 20 million and your company is in the red. It just managing your own business, it sounds like that's kind of wacky. But I hear what you're saying. So we have a philosophical difference underlying our projection of racism. Rudy DePass, you think? Go ahead.
No, I think that it's the fact that the minimum wage has not kept up with the inflation rate. So particularly, studies have shown that the gradual increases in the minimum wage have very low impact on unemployment, and with the consumers receiving more money, if the wages are higher, it has a ripple effect over the economy. In other words, these people spend more money. It's less expensive to the government. They pay more taxes, and it provides a greater sense of security for family growth and development.
All right, let me stop you there. 500,000 jobs lost. That's the stats by the Congressional Budget Office. That's not hypothetical. That's not imagined. That should be our objective resource. 500,000. 900,000 lifted out of poverty, one nostril, bloop, 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 over the water level. And then we've got 500,000 jobs eradicated. Bam. What is that going to do in the culture? And I say we're not addressing the real problem, which is job creation. And every time I say that, I get crickets from Democrats and crickets on steroids from Republicans.
I was going to say, I think you're right. The reason Bobby Jindal is saying that the White House, the president is waving the white flag, is because they're surrendering, saying, okay, we can't do anything for this economy. We can't make it robust. We're just putting a Band-Aid over the problem by increasing the minimum wage. We can do better than this. And it's all going to come unglued when the prices of all of our produce and the things that we buy increase with the minimum wage.
Well, I want to know, what in the world did Mr. Jindal recommend to do? Come on, folks.
That's right. All he said, we can do better. We can create more jobs.
Yeah, well, I like him, but man, come on now. We're going to talk about this forever and ever in the weeks ahead on the Harry Jackson Show. But as we're trying to settle this, and we're going to see some legislation already being forced on the American public, are we just moving fast in the wrong direction? Dr. DePass, just a short summary statement before we go on to Black History Month. Is it still needed?
I think that I think that as far as the Governor Jindal is concerned, I think that Jindal would like to have President Obama's job. So I think that, I think I would.
Which shows that his judgment is impaired. No, go ahead. Who wants that job? No, go ahead. You're trying
because
to
he didn't really propose anything, any alternative, just criticism of what's going on.
Right.
and also, he rejects a lot of the potential help available to his state from the federal government in terms of providing health care for the people, which could make them more healthier, and therefore that would reduce costs if it didn't have to end up. So many people didn't have to end up in the emergency room in his state, but would be better fit to.
Now you lost me with the emergency room thing.
Well, I'm saying
is he beating people in the streets? What's
well, he's against the affordable health care resources available to his state.
Affordable health care or Obamacare?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if the people in the state are not healthy, therefore they end up costing the state more money because they will be going to the emergency room for care rather than taking care of their health in advance of major crises and so forth. So they're more available to work, and therefore that would reduce costs both to the federal and the state government.
I got you. So you're questioning, once again, I think there's a philosophical difference with practical outworking that we're at a stalemate, and it looks like, on the surface, we're not in recovery, although people are trying to propose and say, we're recovering, but it sounds like in the interim that President Obama is trying to ameliorate the least of these 2.3% of the workers, 3.3 million people's misery in some token way, also extending unemployment benefits, these kinds of things, to the guy unemployed that'll give you his vote. And to others, it may seem offensive because they feel like they pay all the bills. Let's shift gears, remaining in the program, Black History Month. Dave Perlett, you said it's still needed. Why?
Why? For people like me. You see, I like to hear more about the great history of the Black American and things that I never really understood or grew up in. I've gained so much just by the information and understand the struggles that Black America's gone through.
But does emphasizing Black history divide us, Dr. DePass, rather than unite us? Does it make us hyphenated Americans, African Americans, Jewish Americans, Italo Americans? What about just being American Americans?
Well, it'd be great if it were true. I don't think we've reached that stage in history of our nation. I think that Black History Month is important because especially Black people need to know the history of the movement of Black people from slavery to freedom and opportunity. But I think it could emphasize, for Black people, opportunities, rewards for hard work, so we won't go back to where we were. I have a grandson who went to a Southern college recently for orientation for college, and he was sort of shocked by the culture he found there. In other words, he found that clingishness of the whites and by default separation of blacks, and he was baffled by it. And I think it's much because he just wasn't aware of where blacks have come and history of the movement. So
okay, we've got to stop right there. This is Harry Jackson Show. We're going to have a great program, Women's Wednesday, for you tomorrow. As we close, we want to honor Harold Ramis, who was the creator and force behind Animal House, Caddyshack, Ghostbusters, and Vacation. God bless you, and may you have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow on the Harry Jackson Show.